1. This happened to me, 23, female, and to a good friend Jenny and I when we were both in high school, so approximately 6 years ago. When we were 16, and we loved drinking and smoking, but since we were underaged, we spent quite a few nights standing next to a convenience store waiting for an adult stranger who would agree to buy us something to drink and cigarettes, with our own money, of course. The store is in a pretty trafficked part of our town. A lot of people coming in and out of cars, buses, and pedestrians. Also, we live in such a safe city, little to no crime. We can walk at nights at 3 a.m. without having to worry too much. I remember this one time where Jenny and I walked to this store to try and buy cigarettes. It wasn't too late in the evening, 8 p.m., when we succeeded and sat on a bench next to the store for a smoke, when a strange man looks at us, parks his car, and exits the driver's seat to open all of his car doors and stand there, weirdly staring at us, at different parts of his car, and at the floor. He looked like he was in his late 50s, frizzy, white hair, and eyes that look extremely unaware but not frantic or anything. Now, I don't know if most girls are like this. I know I'm not, and my logic says that we shouldn't be like this for the most part. But I seem to attract girls who are very engaging when a person who screams stranger danger approaches them. Creeps, weirdos, men who just awkwardly disturb us, just to hit on one of us even though none of us is interested. Somehow every good girlfriend I've had this weird, annoying, and, may I say, unsafe habit to entertain their harassers. This man felt incredibly off to me, and I remember Jenny looking at him, then me in a confused look, when he walked towards us, a few meters from his car, with all of his car doors still open. He stood like 2 meters from us, and about a meter from his car. Started a babbling monologue of how he lost his phone inside his car, he thinks. Perhaps underneath this seat. Damn, my heart is beating fast just from thinking about this. He didn't give us a second to respond before asking us to look for it for him. Jenny stands up and starts walking to his car. I don't know much about cars. It was an old grey standard vehicle, not a van or anything. But I yelled, "Jen, what the hell are you doing? Don't go inside a strange man's car." The man noticed my distraught look, and Jenny says, "I'm not getting inside, I'm just looking from the outside with the camera flash." He says, "No, please, just look inside to find it." She put maybe 1 foot inside, but I gave her a look and was trying to contain this situation, and mostly him so he wouldn't notice that she is inside the car behind him. So I asked the man, "Why do you think your phone is underneath the seat?" "I was driving here and heard it ring from somewhere inside the car when my daughter called. I thought it might be inside my pocket." "And it isn't? How would you know it's your daughter if you lost it?" "No, it might be in my pocket, don't know. Can you check?" Walks a little closer to me. He had a confused look, like he sincerely didn't know where his phone is. Like he is a child. "No, ew, WTF. Why would I check your pocket? You're a grown man, check it yourself." By this time, Jenny comes back to stand near me, as the man, who is a complete weirdo, is scaring me. As he continues to ask and beg us to check inside his car, I tell him no, and that I can call his number for him to see where the ring is coming from. The man says that he's out of batteries, so it wouldn't help. Keeps asking us to basically crawl into his back seat. Thank God for extreme situational awareness while in situations of stress, because the next thing I said may have saved Jenny, who was completely engaging and stood next to his car for a long while. "You said your daughter just called you, and that you heard it from inside the car. And if you didn't find the phone since then you have no way of knowing the status of your battery. And if you did, then you're harassing us, sir, and we're leaving. Good luck finding your phone inside your pocket yourself." Now, revisiting this story, I am aware that there could be reasonable explanations to all of that could contradict his whole creepy guy narrative. Maybe he was out of battery, and his speakerphone in his car passed his daughter's next phone call over to the car system. But nothing I can think of can explain him being so stubborn with wanting us inside the car. So, whatever reasons that could make this story less creepy will not stand, given the creepy vibe this guy had. Sir, I hope you find your phone, but let's not ever meet again. 2. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough to not feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, especially if there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me, though. It made my little house feel even more quaint on dark nights. I got home from work one day in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I saw only what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd, as I had never smelled that before around that house. I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just got off a shift with a few hours of overtime, so I felt pretty tired. Even though it wasn't even 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up sometime later, sure that I had heard a noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by to use my shower after work on his way to his night classes. I even gave him a spare key so he could stop by even if I wasn't home. He would always text me to let me know beforehand, though, and I hadn't heard my phone go off. I reached over to my bedside table and picked up my cell phone to see if my friend had sent me a text. The bright light from my phone's screen and number pad blinded me. These were the days before phones had a light sensor that would dim the screen in the dark, and this particular phone was so bright I could use it as a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I could make out that it was 9-something, but I couldn't tell if I had an unread text or not. I set my phone aside and called out my friend's name. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard loud footfalls as someone started running through the bottom floor of my house. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside. That house had 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway. The one I was in and a spare, and a bathroom at the end. The bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard whoever was in my house thunder down the hallway past my door and into the bathroom. Thank God he did. That gave me enough time to open the attic access in the ceiling of my closet and hoist myself up. I had just started to lift myself up when the person ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside of the attic when my bedroom door burst open. I heard footsteps run into my room and stop. When they didn't see me in that room, they ran back to the hallway and into the other room, which just had boxes stacked in a corner, some weights, and a table where I painted my miniature models. I guess they decided that if someone were hiding, it would be in the bedroom because they charged back into my room and turned on the light. A moment later, the closet door was ripped open. I was crouched in my attic, just a foot or so away from the access, so I could try to stop them if they started to climb up. From my vantage point, all I could see was from about their knee down. They were wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, they stepped away, and I heard a loud crash coming from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. That scream was the most unnerving part of the incident for me. It reminded me far too much of my stepfather, who would scream in a similar way when he lost his temper. He would eventually be put in a mental hospital for several mental disorders that resulted in erratic and violent tendencies. The man in my house ran back down the stairs. I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I stayed crouched in the attic. I had left my cell phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't certain I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe enough to climb down and call the police. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the intruder had flipped my bed over, I assume in an attempt to find me. That was the loud noise I had heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my cell phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. The first floor was a mess, but I had expected that. Chairs had been knocked over, the sofa had been flipped, all the books, pictures, and knickknacks I had in my shelves were strewn across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been open, and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown to the ground. As far as I could tell, the only thing missing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They found that the side door had been forced open by something like a crowbar. They also found a few cigarette butts along my fence line, along with some foil and an empty pen tube, which the police said people often use to smoke meth. So they think he had been watching my house for a while. I realized that he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me that I should stay with family or friends that night and get that door fixed as soon as possible. I opted to just not sleep. I moved the shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple hours cleaning things up. I would often go to the window with a flashlight and shine it along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day, I called to have the door fixed and motion lights installed at the back and sides of my house. I ran a phone cable up to the attic and added a landline. I never wanted to be stuck up there without a phone again. Nothing else happened at that house, though. I lived there another 3 years without incident. One more precaution I took was practicing getting out of my bed, going to my closet, and climbing into the attic as quickly and quietly as possible. I even kept at it when I moved. Except now, I go to a crawl space at the back of the closet instead of the attic. I try not to think about what would have happened if I had been a bit slower getting into the attic, or if he hadn't gone into the bathroom at the end of the hall first. 3. So, I am a 23-year-old female. I live in a townhouse with my 2 children, 2 and 6 months old. My fiancé did live with us until 2 weeks ago, when I caught him trying to fuck other women and made him move out. That's important to the story. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and when he did live with us, my ex worked evenings. Let me set the scene. We live in a tiny townhouse in northern Pennsylvania. My line of townhouses sits in front of a big field that runs to a line of woods. As far as I'm aware, these woods stretch for at least a few miles, and I'm not aware of any houses in there or any roads that lead through them. My living room has 3 windows that look to the field, and my bedroom on the 2nd floor only has 1 window that faces that way as well. People do tend to walk their dogs back in the field, and kids sometimes play back there, but I rarely ever see anyone close to my house. For that reason, I tend to leave my blinds and curtains open because I guess I just enjoy the view. So in July of 2019, I was laying in bed trying to fall asleep. All the lights were off, but I had my window and blinds open since it was so warm. I was looking out the window and I noticed small red and white lights just outside. I got up and looked to realize that the lights were coming from a drone. I ran downstairs to where my fiancé of the time was sitting in the living room and ran to the window. I told him what I saw, but of course, when he went to look, it was gone. I was paranoid that the drone could have had a camera on it and someone was watching me with it. I kept my blinds closed for a while after that. Fast forward to January of this year, I guess I, stupidly, got comfortable and assumed that whoever it was flying the drone was a one-time creep. My blinds were open, and I had just gotten out of the shower. I was sitting on my bed, pretty much naked except for my underwear, scrolling on my phone when out of the corner of my eye, I saw lights again out of the dark window. It was that damn drone again. I ran out of the room and waited for a few minutes. I peeked back into my room and it was gone. I quickly shut my blinds and got dressed. Honestly, I felt sick at how stupid I was to leave my window open again, especially when I was practically naked. Now for the really disturbing part. My 2-year-old son and I were out in the field 2 weeks ago, 3 days after I kicked out my boyfriend, playing ball. I had my 6-month-old strapped to me in a baby carrier. Probably about half an hour after we had been out there, I heard a slight whirring noise coming towards us. I looked up and saw that damn drone flying towards us. I looked around and didn't see anyone. It stopped right over us. I freaked and grabbed my son and dragged him into the house, looking back at the tree line every so often as we went. I knew they had to be hiding in there. I went inside, closed the blinds, and called my mom and told her about the situation. She told me to just keep an eye out. I said I would. My son likes to line his toys up along the windowsill, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to open them up just an inch or so. A while later, after we ate dinner and it was almost dark, I was feeding my 6-month-old and my son was playing. He was standing over by the window, lining up his toys. He started saying, "Dada, Dada." I assumed he was just missing his father, and dismissed him by saying he was going to see him that weekend. He kept saying, "Dada, Dada," though. I looked up and saw him pointing to the window, under the little gap the blinds didn't cover. I froze. I remember that he calls any man with facial hair Dada, because it reminds him of his father. But there was no way someone would be bold enough to actually come up to my window, not when my neighbors are literally right there. Anyone could see them. But there aren't any lights back there. So unless someone actually stepped out of their house, I guess nobody would see them. Maybe it was my ex. But he should be at work at that time. I ran to the window and moved my son. I didn't want to lift the blinds, but honestly, I was sure it had to be the person who had been creeping on me for the past year, and I wanted to see who it was. I pushed the blinds and was looking at a man, who I definitely had never seen before, crouching in front of me. He was bald with a mustache and goatee. I have no idea how old he was. He could have been anywhere from 30 to 50. When he saw me, he smiled and stood up. I yelled and told him to fuck off and that I was going to call the cops. He just stood there, smiling at me like some freak. I was about to close the blinds again when he said something I couldn't hear. I told him to leave again, and he said, louder this time, "I just want to talk to you." I shook my head no and yelled the same thing to him. He started slapping his hands on the window, yelling, "No, no, no," over and over. I grabbed my phone. Scared he was going to break in, I dialed 911. My kids were crying from the yelling, and I felt on the verge of tears. I told the operator what was going on. The whole time I was on the phone, the man was pounding on my window, screaming now. He was yelling all kinds of nonsense, and I only caught some of it. He said he's been watching me for months. I'm beautiful. He wants me to come with him. He'll kill my children if I don't. The operator told me to go to an upstairs room and hide until the police arrive. My town doesn't have a police department, so we rely on the state police. She said it would be about 20 minutes, but to stay on the phone with her. The man was practically punching my window now, and was just screaming like a maniac. I was about to grab my kids and run upstairs when I heard someone else screaming. The man bolted. I looked out and saw my neighbor and his girlfriend. I opened the window and my neighbor said that he heard the man, so he ran around the building. He said when the guy heard him, he ran back to the woods and disappeared in the tree line. They said they also called the police. I thanked him 100 times. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They did a quick search around the buildings and in the trees, but obviously didn't find anything. I've been super paranoid since then and stayed at my parents' a few nights after it happened. I don't know why that guy targeted me or why he waited so long to do something. I'm just happy my neighbors were there to intervene, or who knows what would have happened. So to the creep who has been stalking me and my family for the last year, I genuinely hope we never meet again. My children are currently with my parents indefinitely, and since I do their grocery shopping now anyway, I'm there with them from usually 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. I've been sleeping in the living room with my car keys and pepper spray on the table, so I can make a quick escape if he comes back. I'm not able to get a fence, but I am looking into getting cameras. My neighbors on both sides of me agreed to keep a lookout, and I've let our maintenance guy know about the situation as well. He lives a few houses down and gave me his number. I'm not armed, and I'm not comfortable enough with guns to own one. I'm not able to get trained with the quarantine right now. But the maintenance man carries, and he said he would be on high alert. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 490. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I must say, listening to the final story there, the idea of a drone being used to spy on us now, I'm genuinely surprised it hasn't happened sooner. Especially right now when we're all on lockdown, those perverts have got to get their jolly somehow. I'd imagine if you went onto Amazon or PC World Curries, anywhere that sells electronics right now, you'd have a hard time finding a drone, probably as hard to find as you do finding hand sanitizer. Although maybe that's just my inner pessimist talking. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now, So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.